I'm Scott with offgridstovesandmore, and I'm here today to talk about two items on your stove that could have you scratching your head if the part goes out as to why it's going out and what are the symptoms if they go out. The first thing that I want to talk about is the low limit switch. If by chance you hit the start button, pellets start dropping, combustion fan turns on, after anywhere from 12 to 16 minutes, which is the startup time in order for the stove to reach 120 degrees, your snap disc, your low limit, is designed to turn on your convection fan and hand the control over to your potentiometer. Now, if by chance that it goes through the 12 to 16 minute startup, and after that time the stove shuts down, you could potentially have a bad switch. Okay, what that means is for some reason your stove did not reach 120 degrees, or you have a faulty snap disc that did not close at 120 degrees and it's in need of being replaced. Now, because I am here to talk about snap discs, I'm not here to talk about all of the things that could contribute to the stove not following through after the startup and to continuing to run. Now, some of you are going, well, what is it, Scott? Is it 12? Is it 15? Is it 16 minutes for my startup? Well, that all has to do with the Eprom chip that you have on your board. Now, the Eprom chip, for some of you, you've never changed it out. You've never felt as though it was necessary. You've never had a problem with your stove. That Eprom chip sets the parameters for the stove, including the snap disc. Okay, so the low limit switch basically stays open. And what open means when you start talking about circuits, open means a broken circuit. Closed means a continuous circuit. So now, some of you that are capable of, doing minor testing on your stove, this is the easy way to check to see if you have a bad snap disc. Let's just say that your stove goes through the startup and then shuts down. If you take a wire or a paper clip from post to post and jump the snap disc, what it's going to do is, after you've done this and you hit the on button, everything is going to operate on your stove. Another situation that's just recently we had to help a customer that called us is, my stove won't shut off. Okay, well, if your stove doesn't shut off, that's a potential problem with the low limit snap disc, which means that instead of the snap disc opening and closing, what it's doing is it's staying closed and it's just letting your stove continuously run. Now, this is a bad thing, only in the way that if it's up on high and it's just really ripping, you could potentially have an overheating problem, which then is going to fall into into the other snap disc that's on your stove, which is the high limit. Okay, now understand that when your low limit snap disc performs the way that it should, this is how your stove is going to operate. You're going to turn the on button to the on position. Your auger is going to start dropping pellets into your burn pot, and your combustion fan is going to start up and it's going to start running, creating a negative pressure inside of the stove, which then is monitored by the air sensor. So it's now going to run for a particular startup time, depending on your Eprom. And again, you can watch our video out there about Eproms. But again, you will either have a 12, a 15, or a 16 minute, depending on which version of Eprom you have. If one of those things occurs, you have to take into consideration that the low limit snap disc which is right here on your combustion fan. And your combustion fan, when you are facing your stove, it's on the left-hand side. This is connected to your chimney, okay? Either a T clean out, or you're gonna have some type of flex liner or whatever coming down and hooking up to this port. This right here, if you can see, which I don't have a light, but look really closely, you can see it shining in there. That's the back side of the low limit. And if by chance this gets plugged up with creosote, it can put a coating of creosote on the face of the low limit snap disc, and the snap disc can start malfunctioning. So your stove can literally start running erratic. You know, it can start acting like it's got a mind of its own, and mama says, honey, it's time to call a priest because this thing's possessed. Okay, that's what happens with these snap discs. It's not just cut and dry to where it's either going to be on or off or whatever. Also, it's got a small little gasket that is underneath between the casing and the snap disc itself. That is to make sure that no air gets in, and if by chance it does, then your stove's going to start freaking out again and start doing whatever it wants to, because air is going to affect the negative pressure in the stove. Next thing you know, you're calling us going, I have no idea what's going on with my stove. Okay. This little guy here is your high limit. Your high limit switch, when you're facing the stove, is on the right hand side, and you have to take the side panel off, and right down here, this little high limit switch is installed on the back side of the firebox. Now, what is the reasoning for the high limit switch? The high limit switch is the main safety feature of your stove, which means that if for any reason your stove starts overheating and becomes the body becomes 250 degrees, which is very hot, especially since there's wires and electronics and components that can't handle that much temperature, the stove will shut itself down. Turn off the auger and stop feeding the stove so that it goes out, or it will just kill itself completely. Now, it's intended to just stop the pellet fuel from dropping into the fire pot, letting it burn itself out. And it will normally keep itself running. It'll keep the convection fan running and the combustion in order to cool itself down as quick as possible. If it's just completely dead, if it just shuts off and your stove just goes dead, more than likely you either blew a fuse located on your stove, or this little device right here, this little snap disc, malfunctioned. And next thing you know, if it does shut itself completely down, you're going to have smoke that's going to be entering your home, and mama's going to be freaking out, probably thinking about calling 911 because the smoke detectors are going off, the dog's barking, mama's starting to get a little bit upset, and all you need to do is just open a door and vent the smoke out, okay? If it does do this, to make sure that there wasn't any wire casings or there wasn't any type of overheating back where the components are, and just make sure that you don't have any fire or a heavy amount of smoke coming from the back of your stove. Yes, that's kind of scary to think about, but again, that's how important this little high limit snap disc is. Now, this is not a snap disc that you want to jump. Okay, we have had customers in the past that didn't know our number or had no idea how that they were going to replace this little snap disc, and they just jumped it. Bad idea. Now your stove can overheat well beyond 250 degrees and increase the chances that your stove could catch on fire. And here is another very, very important fact about fall startup. All summer, you never fired it up. Well, what happens is if you haven't cleaned your chimney in some time, or your stove itself. Creosote has moisture in the creosote when it is formed. Hot weather then dries out that creosote, and when creosote dries out, it has a tendency to pull off of the pipe or parts of the inside of the stove and fall down. So what'll happen a lot of times, which this is happening right now because it is now fall, is say tall vertical chimneys, whether it's an insert or a freestanding model, that creosote will fall down and it'll have a tendency to plug up the exhaust port on the back of the stove. If that happens, then your stove may not start up, or it will start up, but it may shut down, or it may not operate the way that it should, due to the fact that it is not able to push the airflow out of the stove. It affects the negative pressure of the operation of the stove. The air sensor freaks out. Again, you need a priest. Okay, we have a rather in-depth cleaning video. This is out there. We actually have a service and maintenance, and then we have a cleaning video, which kind of overlaps a little bit, but you get information in one that the other one doesn't have. So if you watch them both, if you can put up with my ugly mug, you're going to learn a lot about your stove and how to service and clean it. Give us a call. If your stove is acting up in any way, give us a buzz. Let us know what the symptoms are. We will get you up and running as quick as possible. We have all of these snap discs in stock. We've got motors, motherboards, you name it. We have it all, and there's no need to sit and wait for trying to figure out what the problem is with your stove. Give us a call, 800-348-1021. Email us. Again, quickest way to get to us and get a response out of us, offgridstovesandmore@gmail.com. You guys stay safe out there. Peace.